the glow on this image, which we're not exactly sure exactly what it is that what is leading to maybe this theory that some people think that this could be an alien ship?
Well, it's a possibility, and I define the scale where 0 means it's a natural object and 10 means that it's a technological object.
3I Atlas has suddenly become something far more mysterious, far darker, and potentially groundbreaking, because out in the frigid emptiness beyond Mars, Webb recorded something it absolutely should not have. Not ordinary starlight, not a reflection from dust or ice. Artificial light, a luminous signal behaving like no comet, asteroid, or wandering rock. A glow that ignores every known law of physics.
That poses a potential threat to humanity. And we need to be aware that when objects come into the solar system, that one out of all these objects might be a spacecraft.
Astronomers and astrophysicists now face a single question that sends a shiver through the scientific world. What is 3I Atlas really? Stay with us, because the latest data has reignited humanity's oldest and most haunting mystery. Are we truly alone in the universe? 3I Atlas first appeared as nothing more than a faint spark, drifting at the outer edge of the solar system, yet moving on a course no native object could ever follow. Its path made one thing certain. It was interstellar, born far beyond the sun's gravitational domain and hurled across the galaxy by forces we can only guess at, before slipping silently into our cosmic backyard. At first, scientists dismissed it as another celestial oddity, much like its predecessors Oumuamua and Borisov. But even from those earliest snapshots, something about Atlas felt unsettling, as though it carried a secret waiting to be revealed. Unlike most interstellar wanderers, 3I Atlas glowed with a brilliance that simply didn't add up. Its magnitude refused to match its predicted size or composition, as though the numbers themselves were lying. The object shimmered with an eerie, unwavering consistency, its light neither dimming with distance nor flaring with the wild bursts of gas and dust that comets normally unleash. Ordinary comets brighten chaotically as frozen ices sublimate into space, but Atlas defied the script. Its glow held steady, almost as if some hidden engine deep inside were fueling it from within. Telescopes worldwide pivoted to capture every detail, but the real breakthrough came when Webb, our most powerful eye on the cosmos, locked its gaze on the anomaly in the infrared spectrum. What it uncovered would upend everything scientists thought they knew. Perched nearly 1 million miles from Earth at the stable Lagrange point, the James Webb Space Telescope was built to see the unseen, to pierce through the blinding glare of stars and expose whatever hides in cosmic shadows. When Webb turned its unmatched vision on 3I Atlas, astronomers expected clarity. Instead, the mystery deepened. Webb's instruments picked up a concentrated thermal emission radiating from the object's center, something that simply didn't line up with natural sunlight bouncing off ice or dust. Normally, a comet glows because it scatters the sun's rays across a halo of particles. But Atlas? It burned with its own heat, a glow seeping outward from the core itself. This wasn't reflected light, it was emitted light. And when Webb mapped the thermal profile, it revealed a pattern that fit no known physics, no distribution curve seen in any natural body before. It pulsed, faintly, irregularly, and in the most unsettling way imaginable. The glow wasn't random, it seemed to cycle in subtle intervals, a rhythm that whispered of intention rather than chance. At first, scientists scrambled for natural explanations. Teams at NASA and the European Space Agency floated ideas ranging from exotic radioactive decay to hidden friction beneath the surface, even the presence of unknown isotopes. Yet, as more data streamed in, each of those theories crumbled under scrutiny. The only explanation that remained was the one no one dared to write openly. 3I Atlas might not just be illuminated, it might be powered. As Webb, Hubble, and Earth-based telescopes continued feeding observations, a startling profile of the object came into focus. It bore no resemblance to any comet, asteroid, or wandering relic of space. Its trajectory was unnervingly precise, not chaotic at all, almost as though the object itself were choosing its path. 3I Atlas didn't just drift, it maneuvered, subtly adjusting its course as it slipped through gravity wells. Its motion was far too stable to be natural. Instead of tumbling chaotically like any inert rock, its rotation seemed controlled, deliberate. Stranger still, even when it swept close to the searing blast of solar radiation, no cometary tail appeared. Observations hinted at a protective shell, a casing shielding whatever lay within from the sun's fury. Then came the discovery that rattled astronomers everywhere. Measurements of the object's albedo, its reflectivity, revealed something astonishing. In certain regions, it reflected light with near perfection, rivaling polished metal. Not dust, not ice, not fractured stone, but metal. The implication struck like a cosmic thunderclap. If Atlas was metallic, structured, and actively emitting energy, then this wasn't a natural fragment of the galaxy. It was technology. Whispered words began to surface in academic halls and encrypted email threads. Probe, beacon, artifact. The idea that this could be an alien spacecraft was no longer confined to conspiracy boards. It had infiltrated the highest levels of institutional science. But the most damning evidence wasn't the odd trajectory, the metallic gleam, or even the internal heat. It was the light itself. Photometric analysis revealed that Atlas wasn't reflecting sunlight randomly. It was emitting a tight band of wavelengths, a narrow, precise spectrum. In other words, this glow was engineered. It mirrored exactly what humanity creates with LED arrays, laser communications, and spacecraft signal beacons. Moreover, that narrow spectral band included frequencies we use on Earth for communications and guidance systems, an eyebrow-raising detail that demanded attention. Even more startling, the emitted intensity seemed to nudge in step with changing solar radiation, as if an onboard system were actively compensating in real time. The light didn't flicker randomly. It pulsed with an odd, intermittent cadence that felt engineered. Astronomers fed the measurements into every known signal model, and the results were frustratingly ambiguous, but not meaningless. Some researchers argued the pulses looked like binary sequences. Others suggested a rotating power source could produce similar patterns, yet the consensus hardened around a simple truth. This was not a passive chunk of cosmic debris. It was doing something, deliberately. We watched it unfold live as data streamed in. A team of astrophysicists from MIT and Harvard performed a deep signal analysis on the electromagnetic emissions from 3I Atlas. At first glance, the spectrum looked like random noise, but when they applied Fourier transforms to tease out cyclical behavior, a pattern surfaced. Buried in the static, subtle like a whisper under thunder, lay a structured, repeating pulse too precise to be natural. It wasn't standard binary nor a familiar human modulation, but it carried the unmistakable hallmarks of intentional encoding. Some speculated it could be a beacon, a repeating broadcast aimed at receivers, not a terrestrial signal at all, an engineered message drifting through our neighborhood of stars. Others theorized it could be telemetry, a constant data stream sent back to wherever this object came from. The unsettling part was this: whatever the message was, it hadn't changed since the Webb first detected it. It was as if 3I Atlas wasn't trying to talk to us, but someone else, and maybe that someone had already heard it. News of the discovery spread quickly through the highest levels of scientific and defense institutions. A confidential report circulated internally within NASA and then leaked to an unnamed journalist. Revealed that top officials were already coordinating with global space agencies to determine whether 3I Atlas posed a threat. Some scientists argued it was benign, an ancient probe, perhaps centuries old on a pre-programmed route through the stars. Others weren't so optimistic. They raised questions no one could answer. If it's transmitting, then who is receiving? If it has light emissions, does it also have propulsion? If it's here by design, then why now? The report mentioned the possibility, however remote, that 3I Atlas was not just passing through, but observing, tracking planetary alignments, electromagnetic fields, or even advanced civilizations. The possibility ignited panic behind the scenes, because if this object wasn't alone, then something else might be on the way. Further investigation into the strange luminosity of 3I Atlas sparked a revolutionary idea. It wasn't merely radiating energy, it might be harvesting it. Scientists noticed how the object's light output shifted subtly with its distance from the sun. Paired with the absence of typical chemical activity, this hinted at a breathtaking possibility: a solar collection array or a photonic absorption system woven beneath its outer shell. Avi Loeb and fellow theorists even proposed that the faint dust cloud cloaking Atlas wasn't random debris at all, but a design feature. It could serve as camouflage, masking its artificial frame, while also acting as a medium to capture and store solar radiation. If correct, Atlas wasn't just moving under its own power, it was a self-sustaining craft, capable of voyaging endlessly between stars, refueling as it went. This concept echoed a long-standing theoretical blueprints for interstellar probes, machines built to slumber for millennia, awakening only when they encountered a star system worth exploring. If our solar system was what triggered that awakening, then the chilling truth was unavoidable. The message had already been received. As international space agencies scrambled for answers, one reality grew impossible to ignore. We are not ready. Despite decades of speculation, our political, scientific, and even philosophical systems are utterly unprepared to process what 3I Atlas may represent. No public statements have been issued, yet leaked documents from agencies in France, Japan, and Brazil suggest private concern is mounting behind encrypted doors. All the signals pointed toward a single, unsettling possibility. This wasn't merely an oddball in the sky, but a first encounter unfolding in slow motion. There was none of the cinematic drama, no landing, no sudden arrival, no spectacle, only raw telemetry, numbers, light, and an eerie silence. Webb and a network of ground observatories kept watching 3I Atlas every day. Yet every answer the data offered seemed only to open more questions. Two questions loomed largest. If this truly is contact, it's on their terms, not ours. Quiet, distant, and profoundly discomforting. That thought cuts deep because it suggests this may not be an invitation at all, but surveillance. And if so, then we may already be the observed. Just when researchers thought 3I Atlas had settled into a tame, predictable path, it did something unexpected. Its luminosity leapt, suddenly, sharply, and in real time. Webb recorded a dramatic flare, backed up by several terrestrial telescopes. The object's brightness jumped by nearly 40% in under 2 minutes, then held at a new, higher plateau. This spike was not the slow brightening you'd expect from solar approach. It was abrupt, like a circuit being switched on. No natural cause fit the profile. There was no sign of solar-wind interaction, no collision debris, no fragmentation, nothing to explain that step change. Even stranger, the flare came with a measurable shift in the thermal signature, as if internal systems had powered up. Theorists quietly voiced a chilling hypothesis. 3I Atlas may have entered an awakened state, possibly triggered by our star, an activation keyed to proximity that forces us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about interstellar visitors. Or perhaps the flare wasn't random at all. Perhaps it was intentional, a signal meant to be seen, because soon after that dramatic brightening, orbital recalculations from multiple space agencies revealed something even stranger. 3I Atlas was no longer tracking its predicted path. The deviation was subtle but measurable, and gravity alone couldn't explain it. Even solar radiation pressure, the usual culprit for small nudges in lightweight bodies, failed to account for the change. This shift appeared deliberate, and its new course more unsettling still. Atlas had tilted its trajectory deeper into the solar system, edging closer to the plane of Earth's orbit. The object was no longer just passing through. It had, in effect, changed lanes. Some researchers urged restraint, writing it off as a statistical hiccup or an obscure gravitational quirk. But others saw it for what it might truly be, a maneuver, a course correction no comet or asteroid in history has ever performed. If Atlas possessed even rudimentary propulsion, then we weren't studying a relic of interstellar drift. We were watching a vessel in motion, a vessel with intent, and the revelations didn't stop there. As it slipped within range of Webb's and Hubble's spectroscopic instruments, new data painted an even more shocking picture. The readings hinted at traces of exotic materials, highly reflective alloys, rare earth elements, and, most extraordinary of all, spectral absorption lines from compounds that don't exist anywhere in our periodic table. Whatever this thing is, its very chemistry screams of an origin beyond our imagination. These were not the signatures of a frozen interstellar rock. The materials detected were engineered, or, at the very least, synthesized under conditions no natural process could explain. One spectral profile didn't align with any known chemistry, but it came eerily close to compounds only ever theorized in quantum material laboratories, substances thought to exist solely under extreme magnetic fields or in quantum-confined states. That finding carried two staggering implications. Either 3I Atlas is unimaginably ancient, predating human civilization by millennia, or it was manufactured recently by a civilization far more advanced than our own. In a sense, the materials spoke louder than any signal ever could, because even if we can't decode a message, the messenger itself is undeniably unnatural. Governments and agencies began reacting, not with public announcements but with urgent hidden maneuvers. Encryption on observatory networks spiked overnight. Research teams were quietly reshuffled. Across multiple continents, satellites underwent sudden, unexplained recalibrations. Behind closed doors, spacefaring nations convened in hushed contingency discussions, their silence louder than words. Then came the leak. A document from an international defense consortium suggested a chilling possibility. 3I Atlas might not be a lone wanderer at all, but a scout. Its anomalous structure, its unnervingly stable rotation, its ability to stay operational across interstellar distances, all of it hinted at deliberate design. Design consistent with one purpose: long-term observation. In other words, this wasn't just a visitor. It might be surveillance. If it was scouting, what exactly was it searching for? And more chilling, what would come next across university halls, observatories, and military command centers? A quiet, terrifying consensus began to coalesce. We were no longer the only intelligent presence in the cosmos, and this first contact might not look like conversation, but like an evaluation. As speculation boiled over, a daring team at the SETI Institute took a risk the rest would not. They beamed a focused radio pulse toward the predicted position of 3I Atlas, an intentional outreach packed with universal mathematical constants, the periodic table, and simple visual sketches of humanity. It was meant to be a cosmic handshake, a cautious hello. Days slipped into a week with no answer. Just when the experiment seemed destined for the archive of unanswered calls into the dark, a Chilean monitoring station flagged something odd. A narrow band return, off frequency and distorted, yet timed to mirror the original transmission. It wasn't a reply in language, nor a passive echo. It was a processed ping, a returned signal with subtle variants that implied it had been received and handled, not merely bounced back. What stunned the C team more than the content was the timing. The response arrived precisely 72 hours after transmission, too punctual to be random and too deliberate to ignore. That cadence forced a new, urgent question. If someone had received and processed our message, what exactly had we just told them? And what would their next move be? It meant something had not only received our message, it had calculated the delay and answered on purpose. Almost immediately after the return ping, observatories worldwide began logging baffling anomalies. Webb's infrared mapped thermal chaos for the first time since launch, a jagged signature that made engineers blink in disbelief. Hubble's gyroscopes registered micro-fluctuations despite rock-steady pointing, while ground telescopes reported what were first shrugged off as software bugs, misaligned star charts, inexplicable pixel warps, and frozen data streams each time instruments focused on 3I Atlas. These weren't random one-offs, they clustered in timed windows, synchronized across sites as if someone didn't want us to look too closely. A theory leaked from a shadowy think tank inside the European Space Agency. Atlas wasn't merely broadcasting, it was selectively jamming us. The implications hit like a physical blow. A passive visitor reveals itself. A scout conceals its work. If the object controlled what we could see and when, then we weren't observers. We were being observed and permitted to see only what it allowed. Then silence. Within days of the signal and the cascading glitches, web updates were delayed, data streams restricted, and telemetry rerouted through closed channels. Moves that made it clear institutions were scrambling to understand what had just begun in our skies. Public logs vanished behind access controls. The European Space Agency offered a terse note about instrument recalibration. NASA fell silent, and respected journals that had tracked 3I Atlas began pulling or neutralizing coverage, stripping stories of detail until the narrative went flat. The astrophysics community fractured overnight as uncertainty metastasized across forums and conference rooms. Some scientists argued agencies were simply verifying data before a public reveal. Others whispered a darker scenario, that the discovery had been confirmed and was being contained. Independent observatories tried to fill the transparency gap by streaming raw feeds, but those streams were quickly buried under a tide of rumors and disinformation. What began as a global scientific mystery had been reclassified into a strategic asset, and history shows that once something is deemed classified, the truth often dies in silence. In a last-ditch effort to make sense of the anomaly, a coalition of astronomers and mathematicians turned to pattern recognition and probability theory, no longer seeking a message, but looking for proof of intent. What they uncovered was more disturbing than random noise. Plotted against planetary positions, the object's path traced a curve strikingly similar to a Fibonacci arc, a mathematical signature that suggested design rather than chance. The implication was stark and electrifying. Whether coincidence or calculation, the motion aligned with a universal sequence familiar to systems that understand growth and resonance, a possible encoded geometry in motion that forces us to rethink everything about interstellar visitors and their possible motives. An elegant spiral. The same proportional beauty that appears across seashells and starbursts keeps showing up in Atlas's motion, and that's no coincidence. Even Earth-based signaling schemes echo this geometry, and the timing of Atlas's course corrections, its light flares, and even the returned ping align with prime number sequences. The odds of all that happening naturally are astronomically tiny. These patterns were chosen, not accidental. That means 3i Atlas wasn't merely drifting. It was navigating with mathematical precision, following what looks like a map or a timetable. Some theorists now whisper the unthinkable. This may not be a probe in the traditional sense. It could be an interstellar message, not sent with words but written in motion and behavior, and we've just decoded its opening phrase. As the initial confusion clears, one inescapable truth crystallizes. From the unnatural light it emits, to the exotic materials detected, to the deliberately altered trajectory, every strand of evidence points to an uncomfortable conclusion. This object is not natural. Each anomaly stacks into a coherent pattern of intent. We haven't been alone for a very long time, and perhaps we were never meant to know. The James Webb Telescope, engineered to peer into the birth of galaxies, may have instead caught the first glance of something designed to look back, ancient, deliberate, and now watching from the threshold of our own celestial neighborhood. And still, silence reigns. Agencies refuse to speak. The data remains locked away, and the world has quietly been judged not ready. But we saw the light. We traced the path. And now we're left with the question that chills even the most rational minds. What happens next? Was 3i Atlas merely passing through, cataloging our fragile world before continuing its eternal drift? Or was it the first of many, a probe leading the way for something greater, something waiting for a signal to advance? In the end, it may not matter whether 3i Atlas was machine, message, or something far stranger. What matters is simple. It came, it saw, it responded, and now, in the silent vastness, something may already be turning its gaze toward the one blue planet that blinked first. Perhaps the countdown has begun. Perhaps the universe is reminding us once again, we are not the center. We are the observed. If this cosmic mystery pulled you in, don't let the signal fade. Like, subscribe, and share Deep Orbit to keep the story alive. Drop a comment with your theory, probe, message, or something we haven't even imagined yet. The conversation starts here, and the next chapter may already be unfolding.